Good morning. I'm Mary Moglia-Cannon, your service leader. Jeremy Yanchik is on AV today, and today's service is very, very special. It is in essence a gift from three of our members. Heather and Helen Schneider are sharing their gifts of music, and another one of our members, Liza Rivera, is our speaker today, talking to us about an explorer and naturalist who lived from 1769 to 1859. Lisa has presented this material in both French and Spanish. She shared with me that Martin, you would know Martin best from his music service performance this year. He's quite the showman. Helped with the translation into English. We are very grateful that she chose this material to share with us. Welcome all members, friends, and visitors to UU of East Aurora. We are a community in which all people are welcomed, regardless of beliefs, ethnicities, race, gender, sexual orientation, or economic standing. We are in a safe space. And how great is it that we can be here together on this first humid, hot, sweaty Sunday in August. Please stand in body and spirit to say hi to the person next to you. If you're on Zoom, we know you're out there. Hi. Please wave to each other, or you can chat in the box. Before we begin, our membership coordinator will have some announcements for us.
I recently learned that this could be lowered because I don't have average height. So I'm very happy that I can actually hold this right here instead of standing like this and needing several phone books. So I am Tara Strayed. I am the membership coordinator. I'm still kind of working on establishing that. So I recently started an account for an email address. If you're ever interested in sending me any ideas, any questions or anything, it's uueamembership@gmail.com. I will have that listed. So if you have any questions regarding the class that I'm going to talk about next week, as long as that still happens, or in September, or anything else that you're wondering about, more than happy to answer. So next week, our guest minister, Reverend Christina Church, is coming from UU Erie members and friends. So if you're able to be here in person, we love in person. It's welcoming, it's loving, right? So please come. Her sermon is called Jewels for the Journey. It's about considering Buddhist teaching for what we need to navigate the difficulties we face in today's contemporary living. And there are many difficulties, right? Lots of them, like the heat today. So come. Next week, as I mentioned, I kind of took a hiatus. I was on vacation, and I know everyone had their summer plans and stuff, so I haven't been here for a couple weeks, but I am having a class. It's called Welcoming versus Othering, and essentially what it's about is just ensuring that we're all coming together as a community, as a family, and talking about how we can review and reflect on the ways that we interact with one another, regardless of where you come from and who you are, so that we all can feel connected to one another, especially as we have new faces coming in. We have new faces in the back today, so not to call attention to them, but they're back there. Like, turn that way, all the way back there. Just wave, yeah. This is their first time, so definitely say hi to them, but like not in a weird way like I just did. Just thanks for coming. So that's the main focus, right? We want to have this grow, and so I do really want like 10 people there. If you have friends that you're like, hey, you want snacks on a Sunday and to talk about relationship building, I'm here for you, so please come. That would be great. Either way, though, we will have the class. If it doesn't work out, we'll schedule another date in September, but I would love to have it next week. Any families interested in widening the circle? Widen the circle, people. Contact your family members. Tell them that we want to make the circle huge. We want families to sign up. It's so important. And we don't want to miss this opportunity. It's huge, right? So anyone, no matter who you are, be like, hey, do you want your children to be nicer and kinder to people and learn amazing values for themselves? You should come to this weekend, even if you can only come one day. Think about it. Really think about it. Spread the word, okay? If you want to know more, you can see me, Heather, Dory, Rich, etc. after service. Lastly, church will be closed on the 28th. We are approaching the fall, believe it or not. And on the 4th of September, I cannot believe it's almost here already. Our new church year begins on the 11th of September, and we're going to have some fun, exciting things happening. So stay tuned. All right. I'm going to put this back without ruining any of the chords. Thank you.
Begin this service by acknowledging that our nation was largely built on the ancestral land of Native nations and the stolen labor of enslaved peoples. May we persevere to achieve a clear understanding of our shared past, utilize these lessons learned for good and for progress. Our prelude is Largo from the New World Symphony written by Antonin Dvorak. Heather and Helen Schneider are our musicians and will play. Thank you. Please join me in saying the chalice lighting words on your order of service, which is on a page that's on a seat near you. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning. in celebration of the life we share together.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, growing stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free of hate and greed and tyranny. We are working to be free. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without peace, our world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
The offertory is a moment in the service when we are reminded that UUEA cannot do anything without members and friends showing up and supporting each other. Sincere thanks to those who participate in events, volunteer their time, share their talents, or are able to give financially. If you are inclined to give after the service, there's a plate on the bookshelf on your way out, or you may do so online at uuea.org. The offering hymn is in the great hymnal number 123, Spirit of Life. Our speaker today is Liza Rivera. For a while now, she's been excited to tell us about Alexander von Humboldt. Important because of his objectivity and because he was able to share facts as he observed them, separated from emotions and impressions. For those who don't know her, Liza Rivera received her PhD in Romance Studies at the Sorbonne in Paris. She's a former professor of Latin American and Spanish civilization. She is a former, of Latin American and Spanish civilization at the University of South Brittany in France, and also a former professor of Spanish and Latin American literature at the Catholic University of Brittany. Liza is currently adjunct professor of Spanish and French at Erie Community College. Spanish and French teacher at the Mandala School in East Aurora. We are lucky to have her as a member and as a friend. Here is Dr. Liza Rivera.
Thank you. So first of all, I need to ask you pardon for my English. So Martin helped me to translate a lot of things, but he said, you know what, Mom? Just tell me the thing, and I go and tell it instead of you, because your English is not good enough for this. So you know, right? Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about Humboldt. Yes, a little bit. Thank you. Yes. So why Humboldt? I was always passionate about Humboldt since I was a little girl. I must say that I was born in Colombia, in a colonial city in the south of the country, where Humboldt spent some time. My father was a big admirer of Humboldt. So I was always interested about him. So who was he? Humboldt was a Prussian man who was born in Berlin in September 14, 1769. And he belonged to a Protestant family, but doesn't work?
No.
Thank you. And he had a wonderful, wonderful education. He has the best tutors of his time. His tutors were telling him all what's going on at that time in France. He was in Europe. He learned about the Latin and Greek culture. He learned biology, geography, history. He spoke several languages, German being, it's falling down. German being his main language, but he spoke perfectly English, French, Spanish, some Swedish, and Latin. So he was an extraordinary human being because everything he touched, everything he was interested in, he studied deeply and with facts. He kept away the emotions from the scientific observation. So, yeah, we have to go to the second page. Okay. Thank you. Oh, well, I have never seen this happening before.
You can hold it.
Well,
Lisa, if you want to. Or that may not.
yes, now I think it's staying there. Thank you. So we're going to see some portraits of Humboldt. The first one is a painting of him when he was 14 years old, and the second one is at the end of his life. At that time, it was not common for people to live 90 years, but he did. Knowledge and study keeps you bright and living longer. So Humboldt, it's important to see how he was living in Berlin, and his life was reduced to a very little geographical area. His father died, and they were extremely wealthy. He was a baron, so he belonged to the European aristocracy. So he stayed with his mom, who had an enormous fortune. When his mother died, he felt free to leave Prussia and to go to see Europe. So his brother, Wilhelm Humboldt, he was a linguist, and he was living in Paris at that time. So from Berlin, he's gonna go to Paris, where he's gonna be engaged in the ideas, very interested in the ideas of the French Revolution. He is very excited about the ideas of equality, of freedom, of the human rights. So this is very important to him. And he loves traveling, is his main desire. That's what he is going to use his immense fortune in traveling. He went to 4 continents, and he paid from his pocket everything. The instruments to measure, the people that help him, everything. So he wants to go to follow the Napoleon's expedition in Egypt because he's very interested about the Egyptians. Unfortunately, Napoleon doesn't allow him to follow the expedition. He's frustrated, so he said, I'm going to do something else. And he decided to go to Madrid. He said, I'm going to go maybe to Cuba. He wanted to go to Cuba. So he goes to Madrid. You have to understand that at that time, we are talking about 1799. Nobody from Europe could come to the American colonies without authorization from the King of Spain or England. It was forbidden. You could not do that. But be him an aristocrat and very well connected, he just requested an audience with the King of Spain, that is Charles IV, who received him and not only met him, but also gave him royal passports. What is a royal passport? It's a passport delivered by the Crown of Spain that will allow anybody having it to be able to travel in the American colonies and to receive help from any of the people in charge. So I'm going to be precise here about that term. When I'm talking about America, I'm not talking about the United States. At that time, I have to precise that America, in the European mind, was the whole continent, from Alaska to the Patagonia, right? So he starts, so he received, we can go to the next diapositive, please. So you see, when he goes to Spain, I forgot to say that when he was in France, he met somebody very important to him. And this is Aimé Bonpland, who was a naturalist. And he's going to be his partner in this expedition that he's going to make in the Americas. He's going to go to the Americas for 5 years. So in the left side, you have the royal passport given to him with the Spanish soul, the royal soul, by Charles IV. So that's going to be an open letter to go to the Americans and receive any help. So any help he needs. So we can move. So from France, he takes a boat in direction to the Americas. And he stops in the Canary Islands. This is the first stop. When he stops in the Canary Islands, he is going to study the highest volcano in Europe, that is the Teide. He stays there only for a week, and it's incredible what he's able to do in just 1 week. In that place, next to the next one, so he is going to see, this is a sculpture of him in the Teide. So he's going to see for the first time something very interesting, and it's the difference in the plants from Germany and France and the north of Spain, and what he's seen in the Canaries, and the weather is changing. So he starts thinking about there is a relationship between the environment and the animals and plants that you have. So this is very interesting because he's the first person that is going to coin this idea. So let's keep moving. So from the Canary Islands, he comes from Tenerife, the capital of the Canary Islands. And as I said, he wanted to go to Cuba. Unfortunately, there was no COVID at that time, but a cholera epidemic. So he cannot stop in Cuba, and he has to change his plans. So he arrives to Cumaná in the north of Venezuela. That was not Venezuela, of course. That was the New Grenada. Right? All the colonies had names from Spain, so that was the New Grenada. So he arrives there, and in Cumaná, he's going to see something extremely interesting, and it's the slave trade. He sees how the Spaniards and the Creoles, that are the people that were mixed race, Spanish and Indians, and have a predominant place in society. So he's going to see how these two social groups are treating the slaves. And he is completely opposed to that, and he starts writing a lot of information about what he's seeing, and he's complaining. He started sending letters saying that he's against that. He will be known as one of the first and most important abolitionists in Americas. We are talking about 1799, when he arrives, June 1799, to Cumana. So at that point, he said, okay, I am not in Cuba, I am in Cumana, in what is today Venezuela. He's going to take the Orinoco River, that is the biggest affluent of the Amazonan River. In that, are you understanding what I'm saying? Yes, it's clear enough? Okay, so he's taking this Orinoco River. You need to understand that the conquest of America was in 1492. But besides books of impressions written by travelers or politicians that are not very, that are extremely biased, so Humboldt is the first one that has the idea to collect data and write everything he sees in a scientific way. He does that with a group of people that go with him, but mostly Bonpland that you saw in the other diapositive. So he goes to the Orinoco River, and he's discovered an immense amount of fauna and flora that they have never seen in Europe. He is an extraordinary drawer. Besides all of his qualities, he's an extraordinary artist, and you will see that later on. So he started collecting the humidity, so taking notes of the humidity. When he leaves Spain, he goes to the America with 43 boxes of 43 measurement instruments, the peak of the science at that time. So everything he has is scientific instruments to measure everything he sees. So we can keep going. So you can see again the different trips that he does. So from the Orinoco River, so he goes, so I'm gonna move here. You see, he moves from Cumana, he comes back here, then he goes back, and then he goes, you see, the whole trip is coming here, this goes down, and then he,
Excuse me, Lisa, if people on Zoom.
Oh, sorry.
So just repeat that.
okay, sure. So, I'm sorry. So, yeah, so he goes from the Orinoco River and the Amazonan area. He keeps going now to Bogota. He goes to Bogota and Popayán, that is in the south of Colombia, in what is today Colombia. So he starts seeing the difference in the altitude and the climate. How when you are at 3,000, and I'm talking about meters, I apologize for that, you are at 3,000 meters, you see some kind of plants, you see the temperature is different. When you go to the level of the ocean, the temperature is like 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and the plants are so different. So he starts studying that, and he's gonna recollect all the information about nature, plants, minerals, and society, I mean people, in that he's gonna visit. So this is a very interesting painting of him in the middle of the jungle with Aimé Bonpland. So you see Humboldt and Bonpland, and he is not scared of anything. He has done an extraordinary amount of scientific experiments in himself, even the electric anguilles, how do you say that? You know, the fish that is electric? So he... Electric eel. He tests that on himself, and he records the data. It's really incredible. One thing he dislikes very much and makes his life very difficult, the mosquitoes. Is the hardest thing in the Amazonian jungle. You have to see it to understand it. So that is very hard. So they have all the instruments, they are camping, and they are writing everything, collecting information. So this is one of, so going to Bogota, this is one of the caves where he's gonna see the birds. There are birds that live at nighttime. There are no bats, there are birds. And on the ground, you have the waste of these birds. And he sees that the natives, the Indians of the area, use that for fertilization. And this is gonna be one idea that he takes from the Americas and export to Europe, because the Europeans don't use the waste of the birds so they start doing it with chickens and then other animals. So yeah, so this is another image of Humboldt camping with Aimé de Bonpland and with the natives. He's talking to them. He's recollecting, you know, that Humboldt speaks perfect Spanish. The Indians speak Spanish too. So they make a big exchange, and he takes notes, and he's going to publish books about that, over 50 books. Most of them in French, and the last book, Cosmos, will be in German. And this is because French would be at that time the language of the international language. So this is the descent of the different areas in the going down from the Andes. You have little falls, and these falls, the Indians were the people, the Spaniards, or the Creoles, that is the mix of Indians and Spaniards, they didn't like to be walking in the mud and risking. So the Indians are preparing, you see, they are transporting things that belong to the Spaniards or the colons. So Humboldt see the work that they are doing, and he's very shocked by the amount of physical work that they are asked to do. So something extremely interesting that have been noticed since the Spanish arrived in 1492 is a connection between the rivers. This is a precise map that he made, and it's incredible because it's very accurate. So it's just to show you his level of scientific rigor. He was very, very precise and concise. A very big spirit of to synthesize, this word I cannot say, but synthesize what he was looking at. He worked almost 10 to 12 hours a day, every single day of his life. So this is a very interesting point. So I think that when you see the drawing that Humboldt made and you compare it with the picture, it's quite remarkable. He was an extraordinary drawer, as I said. So what is interesting about this is that this is the place where the myth of El Dorado took place. This is in near Bogota, and this is where Muisca Indian have been seen. He was a chef, a cacique, and he was seen every year after the loss of his wife, giving a ritual ceremony in the lake, throwing emeralds and pieces of gold, and put all his body in gold powder and swimming in the river. That's in the lake. That is the top of a volcano, as you can see. And the Spaniards just heard about that, but they never collect or try to find scientific evidence about that. Humboldt is going to do it, and he will find a piece in the borders of this lake that confirms somehow. We don't know until what extent that lake has never been drained, so we don't know, but he collects a piece of the El Dorado. So that's what that starts. That's what is very important. So this is a condor, right? 3 meters when he span with his wings, and this bird poses a problem to him. This is a drawing that he did himself as well, because he started thinking, that is very surprising. This is a bird that can perfectly fly and be extremely healthy at the level of the ocean, and flies to 3,000 meters and come back, and he has no heart issues, circulatory problems. So he is questioning this. This is going to help Charles Darwin in the future to create his expeditions. He's going to have a very strong influence in a lot of people. Charles Darwin is one of them. Bonpland, his friend, was a botanist. He Humboldt was interested also, as I said, always in plants. This is one of the drawings that he made. He encounters in Bogota Jose Celestino Mutis, a Spanish botanist that is one of the most important botanists of the time, and he collected all the plants and species of flowers that he could find to study the properties in medicine. And these samples are sent to Spain. So here is very important. This is extremely important. So when he finished Bogota, he keeps going to the south. He wants to go to Quito and to Lima, Peru. And this is extremely hard passage, one of the hardest. The name is El Quindío Passage. And everybody used Indians to transport them. Do you see the Indians transporting the people? Humboldt and Bonpland refused drastically. Even if everybody says, you're a baron, you need to do that. This is what is expected. He always refuses, and he was carrying things. He was somebody that was always very concerned about the human being and how their well-being. So he never accepted that. So this is another drawing on the left, picture on the right, about some falls that he finds in the way to Ecuador. This, you see his drawing is extraordinary. The quality, the talent that he had even drawing is really fantastic. He studied the rocks, why the rocks have this shape, how long he tried to measure the time. And this is a very interesting drawing. Humboldt, at that time we didn't have iPhones, so every single part that he visited, what he requests to be painted, and he is always in the images to prove to the world that he was really there. So this is the Chimborazo mountain. Have you ever heard about that? The Chimborazo? Never? So the Chimborazo is a volcano in Ecuador. It's one of the tallest mountains in the Andes. But if you take into consideration the center of the earth to the summit of the Chimborazo, because its location in the equator is the tallest peak on the planet and the closest to the sun. So the height is 6,310 meters, more or less 19,000 feet. And he has all his instruments to measure pressure, and he tries to climb onto the summit. He fell for 200 meters, but he's almost there. For 200 meters he fell, and it's unbelievable because that's gonna be at the news in Europe, Humboldt climbing the Chimborazo, the tallest man on earth. So this is in the south of Quito, the capital of Ecuador, and he studies the rarefication of the air. Each time you go 1,000 meters high, the oxygen rarefies. When you are at 5,000 meters, 6,000 meters, you have almost no air to breathe, and it's a very difficult exploration. So Humboldt gets there, that is 1802, 1801, when the first person to reach the peak will be a British Whymper in 1888. So 80 years later. You see, 88 years later. So he's in advance for everything. So if we can, please. So this is Humboldt and Bonpland. Humboldt talking to an Indian, always collecting information, talking to the population. No, he doesn't believe in what people say, third-hand information. No, he goes always to the source, and he writes down everything. We can. Humboldt was very wealthy, handsome, extremely knowledgeable. He had an extraordinary life, and he never married. He did a lot of things in his life. He never married, and he had a lot of friends that were women with who he had correspondence, and he interacted. There is a myth that Humboldt could have been homosexual. And this myth has never been proven. There are no signs for that. But there is something very interesting, is that when he goes to the Chimborazo, that just we talk about, Humboldt meets two people. Francisco Jose de Caldas, a geographer, on the left, and Montúfar on the right. After talking to both of them, he's gonna choose Montúfar to go with him to the Chimborazo. So the three people that are going to go to the Chimborazo are Humboldt, Montúfar, and Bonpland. And Caldas will be very upset about that because Humboldt didn't choose it. And he started the, how you say, the whispering, you say that, yes, about Humboldt being homosexual. So he writes about, people start looking at that, but there are no proofs, and is the only person that affirms that that is the case. So he goes down, this is in the south of Ecuador, this is Ingapirca. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the time or the opportunity to go to Cusco to visit the extraordinary city of Cusco, but he visits Ingapirca, that is an Inca territory. He's gonna study there the architecture, and he's gonna see the terrace. It's like a flat, they cut the mountains in a way, because the mountains are in the Andes are like that, you cannot plant, so they cut the mountains to make flat, like a stairs, like big terrace, and that's where they're gonna plant. So he writes about that, and he studied the architecture, how they move the stones that were not from the area, so he started organizing that. As always, you will see Humboldt in the left side with Montúfar and Bonpland. So from the south of Ecuador, he's gonna go down to Lima, Peru, but he doesn't like at all. He doesn't like the weather. It's always, the whole year round, it's a little rain, permanent rain, and he doesn't like that. A lot of dust also. He goes to see the ocean, and he realizes that the water is extremely cold compared with the water just a little bit further north or south. So he is going to study the winds and the atmospheric pressure, and he's going to realize that there is a cold current coming from the pole that is known today the Humboldt current. Maybe you have heard about that, yes? And he will be also very known in Europe again, because Humboldt now discovered the current, the Humboldt current. From Peru, he goes to North America and starts and stops in Acapulco, Acapulco. So he goes to Mexico. So this is one of the drawings that he made of the city. He also sees there. He sees there also the relationship between the different social classes. In Mexico is where he's gonna find this diversity more than in the rest of the America that he has visited. He's gonna study the volcanoes. Next to, you know, a lot of earthquakes in Mexico, so a lot of volcano activity. He's gonna study, he's on the top of the image. If we can pass, we will see a little detail. So you see, he's on the top studying the volcanoes, and he comes with the idea that in the Americas, in the Andes, and certainly further north and in the United States, we will have a lot of volcanologic activity. And he goes so far as sorry for my English one more time, I apologize, until the middle of North America, where is today the United States. So new volcanoes, and eventually the faults and the earthquakes in the north of America. So in Mexico, he goes down to Teotihuacan. What is that? This is the biggest human construction after the Chinese Wall. It's 400 meters of size, which is 1,200 feet, and it's all made by the Indians. So the Aztecs made this pyramid. So he studies the architecture one more time, and he talks to the descendants of the Indians of the region, and he starts proving and showing scientifically that the Aztec Empire was a very strong civilization with a lot of, compared to the Egyptian civilization, and also to the Roman civilization, since they have achieved a very big development in the aqueducts, the agriculture, the writing, the astronomy. So that is for his study of Tenochtitlan. So as always, Humboldt is somewhere there in the bottom of Tenochtitlan. He's always there to prove that he was there. While he was in Mexico, there was an excavation, and why I'm showing you this is that nothing escaped to his eye. Everything was important. Everything was, his curiosity was endless. So this is a sculpture made by the Aztecs, 500 years old, when Humboldt discovered it. I mean, Humboldt witnessed the discovery of this sculpture. And if we go to the next, so he saw it and he spent a day drawing everything. This is what Humboldt did. This is today in the Museum of Archaeological Research in Mexico City. So you see, nothing escaped to his eye. The precision and the notes that he took about everything he saw was remarkable. This is just an example that I'm showing you. So the Aztecas and the Mayas, they have a writing. They have a system of writing. The Incas did not. And he is going to study also the codex. That is, only 4 are left. They were all destroyed, but there are only 4 that survived. And he compares the big difference and the level of evolution between the Aztecas and the Mayas that didn't have a writing system, but they used something to communicate, but it was not writing as the Aztecas did. While in Mexico too, so this disc that is 2 meters wide was discovered, and in the left side you have the reproduction of this disc. That is the sun, that is the symbol of Mexico for the Aztecs. So Humboldt is going to reproduce it precisely, as you can see. He was also very interested in the fauna, as I said at the beginning, and this is just one example, but he is going to draw and take notes of every single thing he sees in history. This is a very, the name is very strange. His name is Ocelot, and he takes notes of that. Nobody has seen that in Europe. He observed it and measured it and see the environment where he lives, and what he eats, how he develops. Everything he does is so precise. This is extremely interesting for the world of naturalism in the world, because Humboldt is going to put this map together, precising the different heights on geographical scale and the variety of plants that you are going to find at each level that have never been done before Humboldt. He's the first that's going to do that. Here is a comparison between the European mountains to the left and the American mountains to the right. This is extraordinary. This is a map of the different weathers in the world. So you see that Humboldt was quite precise. He was showing us the different weather, how do you say that? The different, I'm missing the word. Climates, the different climates in the different areas of the world. He was very precise. This is still very accurate today. So he goes to Mexico and he sees the slavery and how they are treated. Again, he is extremely disappointed. He is going to keep writing and talking to the aristocracy in these areas, telling them that he disagrees with that, that there must be another way. So, so this is the visit of a plantation in Mexico, as he sees the same situation, and he still complains. So then from Mexico, and that is related to you, do you know what was the profession of Jefferson, of Thomas Jefferson? Do you know what he was? His profession, what was his interest? No?
Farmer.
Farmer.
Yeah.
He was a naturalist as well. He was very interested in plants. And he was also, like Humboldt, studying the plants. So Jefferson has had a very important influence in Humboldt's life. And when he was in Mexico, he writes because he wants to meet in person with Jefferson. So in that time, it was very fashionable when you were an aristocrat, or very important, to do your silhouette in black paper. Have you seen that before? So in the left is Humboldt. You can appreciate that at Monticello in Virginia because this is there. It was a gift to Jefferson by the artist, Helen. So Jefferson arrives to, in the request to meet Jefferson. That is what Humboldt writes. And I don't know how to write English, so I let you read it. So Humboldt, because Jefferson is 20 years older than Humboldt, 25 years older, exactly. So Jefferson have studied him, he knows about him. And he said, you inspire me since childhood. And Jefferson replied to Humboldt, I let you read. Yes? So Jefferson and Humboldt meet in Monticello, and they talk a lot about what is going on in the Americas. It's a serious and a little unease thing for Humboldt, because remember that he went to the Americas with a royal passport from Spain. And what Jefferson wants is to take Spain out of the way, because he is working in the Louisiana Purchase territory that was in 1803. So when Humboldt met Jefferson, that is going to be in 1805. So they are going to talk and exchange knowledge about New Mexico, New Grenada, New Spain, because Mexico was Spain, the New Spain. So they talk about that, and the information that Humboldt gives to Jefferson is important in how to work with the Spanish Americans. I'm not saying Latin Americans because it would be a term out of context, since Latin America as a term is used later on in 1858, and the first person is a poet from Colombia, Mr. Torres, that used that to make the opposition between the Catholics and Latin cultures coming from Brazil, France, Spain, and the Anglo-Saxon Protestant America, right? So this is the opposition, but this is later. So I'm talking about Spanish America. So this is America after the encounter with Humboldt. The Americas coming out of the earth, that is a tomb. Yes, a tomb, you say a sarcophagus, and is becoming awake, and now it's going to live because of the commerce and industry. That is what that represents. So like all the continent is going to get together to work for the better good. This is a very interesting diapositive. You see in the left side is Humboldt's autoportrait, self-portrait. So he did his, you see the quality as an artist, everything he did was of that quality. It's really impressive. Stendhal, the French writer, is gonna make the other drawing. But the first is himself, it's a self-portrait. So when Humboldt comes back to Europe in 1805, he is already well known, he's in all the newspapers, everybody knows him. Everybody knew him before he went to the Americas, now he's even more known. And you see, he is with the most important people of his time. Mérimée, who is one of the most famous writers, he is with Lamartine. Talleyrand was a minister of foreign affairs of Napoleon. He's with Goethe. Goethe. So you see, he's with Stendhal as well, and Rossini here. So you see, that were his friends, very well connected. Humboldt was, he wrote a lot of books. As I said, if you are interested, just you can Google them. There are, some of them are completely free. So you can study the books and read the books about the works of Humboldt, about the native communities, about the native art, about the fauna and the flora, about the ethnographic relationship between the communities. So that is in all the books. The last book that he wrote was Cosmos. And in this book, he was very old. He was sick 2 years before his death. He suffered a light stroke, and he is not done. And the left image represents Humboldt fighting with death and asking every single day to death to let him live until he finished his book. And death allowed him that wish. So here is Humboldt in Berlin, at the University of Berlin. He is in the left side. His brother is in the right side. They were both very, very important. So why talking about Humboldt in a world today without a lot of information, but we don't know if it's real, if it's clear, if it's reliable? We should just go to sources, to scientific sources, to be able to make decisions. I think that Humboldt has a very strong importance today. Young children and the youth, they should read it and learn from him. He's a very important person for the humanity. Here is something anecdotal, and I thought that was fun to finish with this, is the different places that have Humboldt's name. For example, the cities, most of them in the United States, not in America, South America, but in the United States. Somebody has visited any of those? No? Okay, next one. So there are other geographical places. My favorite is the Humboldt Sea, that is in the moon, the last one, but you can see all that. And in Buffalo, you have Humboldt Parkway that I saw also. So Humboldt is everywhere. His influence is extremely important. So to end this, one of the conclusions of the Cosmos book is how Humboldt explains the fact 200 years ago that nature and the world are not unique entities. They are interconnected. Nature, human activities. He's the first one that's going to say 200 years ago, here in the Valencia Lake in Venezuela, he says that the people's work and abuse of land is going to have repercussion in the change of the weather. That was 200 years ago. We still have not done anything to avoid that. He told us that 200 years ago. So Humboldt wants we to remember that humans, animals, flora, and the planet are interconnected. We have to take care of each other because one is related to the survival of the other. So if you have any questions, that's it. I hope that you understood me. I'm so sorry again for my English. Next time I do it in French or Spanish, that will be better, I promise. So, did you have any questions? Yes?
But was Humboldt Parkway Buffalo named after? Was Humboldt Parkway Humboldt named after Humboldt?
Yes, yes.
I had a question. He's clearly a linguist. He's got all these languages. When he met with indigenous people, Spain had already been in the Americas for several hundred years, so probably some indigenous people had some language in Spanish. But did he ever bridge the gap with indigenous language?
So that is an extremely interesting question. So I'm going to make a very big difference between the Spanish America and the Anglo-Saxon America. In the Anglo-Saxon and French America, the Indians disappeared almost or were confined in little territories. There is a very important letter addressed from Jefferson to Humboldt when he exchanged his ideas about the massacres that they had done to the Indians. And Jefferson, explained and justified that by the fact that he was trying to make of the Indian communities pieces of peace places of peace and happiness for the communities. He was allowed them land, and he has taught them the rudimentary arts for agriculture and industry. But unfortunately, the horrible Albion, which is Britain, have come to use the Indians against the Americans, and the Indians have, which is true, it's historically true, with the Indians have killed so a lot of women and children and massacred a lot of Americans that there was no other solution but to kill them, to kill them back. So there are no, when you walk here in the streets, you don't see Indians. There are no Indians in the streets, there are not. So in the Americas, when you go from Mexico to the Patagonia, well, you go to Paraguay, it's just Indians and maybe 10% of white people. If you go to Bolivia, is 39% of Indian people and 30% of mixed race and some white people. When you go to Colombia, it's gonna be like 6% of Indians or less, and mixed people like me, you can see that I am a mix of Spanish and Indian. It's visible. So in the Americas, the Spanish had a very good relationship with the Indians, in spite of what some historians will say. And that is proven with all the sources. Humboldt also says so. The Spaniards didn't have any racism against the Indians. A proof of that is that they didn't hesitate to marry the Indians and have a lot of little Lizas, right? It's true. So when you go to the Americas, you see that. This is a fact. So the Indians were assimilated to the Spanish culture since very early on, the 16th century. So most of the Indians that Humboldt visited, they spoke Spanish. So then some tribes in the Amazonian jungle, they did not, right? So he had interpreters. He paid all with his money. It was a private enterprise, and he wanted to be as unbiased as possible. So that's why he used the interpreters. For the communities he couldn't reach. But most of the Indians that he talked to and the peasants were Spanish speakers. Because of this relationship and very important symbiotic relationship with the Spaniards and the Indians since the beginning.
You know that he was pretty long-lived, he lived a long time. Did he have any, did he ever talk to Charles Darwin? Did you know Charles Darwin got down?
Right, no, he never talked to him, but Charles Darwin's read all his work. Right. And Charles Darwin said, without Humboldt's work, I would not have been able to do what I accomplished. So there is a very close relationship. When he went into the Eagle, when he was embarking in the boat, that's what he said, just before leaving to the Galapagos Islands. Something else? Well, I promise, next time I will be in French, and you have to learn French. So, something that I forgot to say, so the music that we listened to first, the Skirt from the New World, was because the Voyage was 16 years old when Humboldt died. So he knew him, he had heard about him. And the last piece is to represent the music that Humboldt certainly listened to where he was in the Andes region. But Humboldt didn't like music at all. It was something that he didn't like, was music. He didn't care at all about music. Thank you.
Spirit of truth, be held upon the mountain. Stay in our hearts as we abide below. Give us to hear the rustle of thy garment. Grant us to feel thy shadow drawing near. So may we find the strength to stand face forward, courage to walk into the dawning day.
extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.